Started. Welcome everyone to today's Title Topics webinar. These are Alta's free presentations that we offer every month on issues important to title professionals. I'm Jeremy Yowie, Alta's Vice President of Communications, and today we've got a fantastic webinar planned that we're going to walk through Alta's Homebuyer Outreach Program and highlight the resources your association has developed to help you with your consumer outreach and education. We all know that October 3rd implementation of TRID is going to be a game changer in how closings are handled. Um, it's also a huge opportunity to change the dynamics in how you market your business. And going forward, targeting and educating consumers is going to become an essential piece to your plan. Before starting, I just need to touch on a few housekeeping items. A copy of today's presentation was emailed earlier today to all registrants. If you didn't receive it, you can download the presentation from the handout section of the GoToWebinar window on your computer screen. And if you're listening by audio, please send me an email, and I'll send you the material after the webinar. And my email is jyohe@alta.org. That's jyohe@alta.org. All participant lines are muted for today's presentation. If at any time you have a question, please use the chat box function, and we will save some time at the end of the presentation. As an added benefit, today's webinar is being recorded. After we've got it processed, the recording will be available on Alta's website at alta.org/title topics. That's alta.org/title topics, and all of our previous webinars are archived there as well. I need to thank Fidelity for sponsoring our Title Topics webinars this year. Their support allows us to continue providing these educational opportunities free of charge. With that out of the way, let me introduce today's speakers. Join us. We have a few ALTA members who have been heavily involved over the past year in a work group that have helped develop this homebuyer outreach program. First, we have Tim Evans. Tim is president of Ohio-based Evans Title Agency. We also have Nancy Hughes, vice president of Jackson Hole Title and Escrow Company in Wyoming. Lisa Steele was going to join us, but she had something come up with work, so she couldn't join us today. But Nancy and Tim are going to be able to share the same information. And finally, we also have Wayne Stanley, Alta's Director of Public Affairs, and he has been pretty much the main person at Alta who's been driving this bus. And with that, Wayne, I'll turn the presentation over to you, and Wayne's going to recap some of the consumer research Alta conducted last year, which really helped set the stage for the development of this homebuyer outreach program. Wayne?
Sure. Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, as Jeremy said, with the new TRID forms and the optional language and the comments that we were receiving from state regulators, federal legislators, and even the media, and from our own members, Alta was knowing that we were going to have to go down a route of working on the education and communication that we provide to consumers. And we heard from a lot of members that we needed to do a Got Milk style campaign. We just needed to really be out there hitting the airwaves, doing as much as possible to get in front of consumers. And we wanted to make sure that as we rolled out a program like this, that we were being smart about it and that we had the data behind what we were doing so that it was, not only worthwhile for our members, but so that it was also impactful for the consumer. And made sense for all of our members' pocketbooks as well. And so with that, we spent most of 2014 really going through and doing consumer research. We have gone through 10 different focus groups around the country. Some of those were consumer focus groups, and some of those were realtor and lender focus groups. And then we also did an online survey of more than 1,000 recent home buyers, recent being within the last 6 months at the time that we conducted the survey. And I think as most folks would expect, we found that there is certainly confusion about owner's title insurance among the average home buyer. And that's whether they're a new-time home buyer, a first-time home buyer rather, or someone that has purchased many homes in their life. Our survey indicated a few different things, but one of the biggest was that early education works and has a quantifiable impact on a homeowner's understanding and favorability of owner's title insurance. We really went through in the survey to talk about how when in the home buying process the consumer would like to receive information about owner's title insurance, and most of those responded that they wanted to receive it as early in the process as possible, that they felt like if it was truly providing the amount of protection that we were talking about with these insurance policies, then they would like to understand it much sooner in the process. And that led them to then having that information earlier in the process and being able to digest it before they really get to the closing table and see the price tag for an owner's policy, then led them to have a much more favorable opinion of title insurance companies and owner's policies afterwards. You know, the early education piece really just, it advanced and increased all of our survey findings from the knowledge of two different policies, the loan policy and the owner's policy, as well as homeowners really understanding which one of those policies they have. There were many in the rooms during the focus groups that said that they were going to leave and go home immediately to double check to see if they had purchased an owner's policy or not. And that was a great thing to see, and you know, the online survey really pushed that message just the same. And you know, again, because I can't drive it home enough, the home buyers really wanted that information as soon as possible in the process. And I know that that's a little bit of a barrier for some of our members because they feel like they don't get contact with the home buyer earlier in the process. But hopefully through some of the tools that Tim and Nancy and I are going to talk about today, it'll help our members feel a little bit more comfortable with that. The interesting thing in this research with the talking about an owner's policy early in the process is that our realtor and lender clients simply don't feel like it's their place to promote or explain an owner's policy to the consumer. And so even though they might be driving that conversation and be the expert in the room for the home buyer at the beginning of the process, they don't feel like it's their job. And so that really leaves a great opportunity for our membership through this program to take that opportunity and really run with it, because that's what home buyers expect of us. And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Tim to talk a little bit about the Homebuyer Outreach Program in general.
Thank you, Wayne. As we go forward, we're going to be hearing the acronym HOP a lot, which is the terminology for the Homebuyer Outreach Program. The CFPB, through the communications, has made it very clear to us as an industry that we are to own our product and we are responsible for educating the consumer about the product. All of us are aware that the CFPB in the new TILA-RESPA integrated disclosure documents describe our product as optional. As a result of that, it's going to fall more and more upon our shoulders to educate the consumer about the values of an owner's policy of title insurance. As Wayne mentioned, our partners, realtors and lenders, are going to be much more focused on their products, and again, they don't really feel it's their responsibility to be selling this product. So it is going to be a game changer. We're going to be reaching out to the consumer much more in the early stages of the transaction to not only inform them of owner's policy existence, but the values of the policy. In collaboration with 360 Live Media, it's a firm that we have worked to develop this integrated communication campaign that's going to help Alta members to articulate the value of the policy when we're speaking with our key audiences. This program is designed not only for reaching out to the home buyer, the consumer, but also to the other key audiences, our partners, those being the members of the association, realtors, attorneys, builders, and lenders, financial institutions. Home buyers are our primary audience for the campaign. because that is who we're selling the product to and it's specifically built for. We are going to be directly talking to them more than we ever have in the past. Additionally, to help us to effectively do that and to convey the value of the owner's policies, we have targeted and worked with the B2B audiences, again, and created pieces that we will get to later on in this discussion that will help you to communicate and help to educate them on the value so that when they're asked questions, they can in turn help us with educating the consumer.
Great. And so with that, we really have two main goals through the Homebuyer Outreach Program as far as the communication goes. And the number one goal is to protect homebuyers. That's really the biggest communication piece that we want to put out there. And Nancy's going to talk a little bit more about that here in a second. But it's important that we educate them about the value and benefit of purchasing an owner's title insurance policy in the terms of the protection that it provides. That really rang true for us in our research, and that's our number one goal as we move forward. Our second goal, which is just barely a second, probably more like a 1A, is to empower Alta members and our stakeholders to effectively educate home buyers on the benefits of an owner's policy. And this one, it fits into what I was talking about in those focus groups, that while the home buyer wants the information earlier in the process, it's still extremely important that we continue to educate our real estate partners on how to effectively communicate the benefits of an owner's policy and the importance of the title industry in the real estate transaction as we move forward. And so you'll see that we've got a number of communication tools that help meet both of these objectives.
Hi guys, this is Nancy, and I am excited to talk about this updated branding. And the reason for that is, look at it, the change seems pretty subtle, but it actually speaks volumes about how we're shifting the conversation with home buyers from talking about us to talking about them. So if you look at our old tagline, it's all about us and what do we do, right? We protect the American dream, and it's a little self-important. But you look at what we're doing now, we're talking directly to the consumer about how title insurance benefits them. It protects your property rights. It's brilliant. I love this. I don't know about you guys, but every time somebody asks me, what do you do? We still have that, humana, what do we do? Now we have a simple answer, right? We protect your property rights. So why are we doing this? Wayne talked at the beginning of the conversation about all the research we did in the focus groups with consumers back in 2014. And we learned a few things. Namely, they really, add as many reallys as you want, don't like when we talk about ourselves and what we do. They don't want to hear about our exhaustive searches. They don't want to hear about our curative efforts. They want to hear about what's in it for them. What does title insurance do for them? How are they benefited? The other thing we learned, and I think Wayne may have made reference to this also, was the idea of protecting the American dream just doesn't really resonate anymore. And for us old people on the call, and I'm including myself in the category of old people, we grew up with the concept of the American dream, right? No matter who you are, where you were born, in this country, if you worked hard enough, tried hard enough, you had access to the same opportunity as everybody. You might be the first person in your family to go to college. Maybe you'd own your own home someday. Hell, you could even be president, right? I mean, that was kind of what we all grew up with. But today's audiences are a little more cynical about that, right? They're acutely aware of things like gender gaps, income inequality, food insecurity, all these issues. College? Sure, I can go to college if I want to end up with 6 figures worth of debt. So the rose-colored glasses are a little bit off in terms of the concept of the American dream, not necessarily with all of us, but with a lot of our younger audiences. So for us to, kind of hang on to that concept shows us as a little old school and out of touch. So what we're doing is we're listening to the consumers, and we're making a very conscious and strategic shift from talking about us to talking about them. And you're going to see this new slogan, protect your property rights, on all Alta materials going forward. And we feel strongly that this is going to enhance our relationship with homebuyers. Tim, I think you're up next about messaging architecture.
Yes, as I had said earlier, the CFPB's made it clear that they want us to educate the consumer on the value of an owner's policy of title insurance. When we sat down with 360 in the very beginning, we knew that the consumer was going to be our primary audience. But we also recognized the fact that we had other partners that were included in this group, and those being members of Volta, being realtors, builders, real estate attorneys, lenders. So this piece that you're looking at right here is a tool for you as a title agent. We tried to identify down the left-hand column who our members or who our audiences are. And then we, across the top, came up with 5 different questions that we were trying to address with this, and that being, how do they currently feel? How do we want them to feel? What we want them to think? What we want them to do? And lastly, you can't see it on here, but what are their motivations? And again, this is a tool for you as a title agent to work with so that as you begin your process of educating the consumer or the other interested parties, you can refer back to this and think about the key issues that we're attempting to accomplish through this effort. Next, we move into the member mindset. Again, we are empowered. We have the information. We have the opportunity, unlike we've ever had in the past, to reach out directly to the homeowner and educate them about the values of a title policy. We've been very reluctant as an industry to really step forward and sell directly to the consumer. That dynamic is being changed whether we like it or not, and Alta saw the true need for us to move forward and to have something available with which we could work with in order to accomplish that and to make the task easier for our members. Nancy, Wayne, do you have any input on this?
Yeah, I would say, the one thing that strikes me is, as you bring up, we're not comfortable with talking to the consumer. We really haven't done it much before. But I think if we think about it in terms of educating the consumer as opposed to marketing to the consumer, the rest is going to kind of follow in due course. And that's really the goal here, is to educate. You're not necessarily, selling is going to be a byproduct of that, but it's really about providing the information and understanding how, they're benefited by what we do for them.
As I think it was touched on earlier, the consumer doesn't want to hear about our exhaustive search and all the things that we've done. They're looking for the value. They're looking as to, if I'm going to spend this money, what am I getting out of it? What are the true benefits? And this is an opportunity for us to take that information and convey it directly to the consumer and allow them to not only be more educated, but also I think that we will see more recognition, and we all have experienced the media has gone after our industry and our product in the past, and a lot of that's been due to our silence, and this is an opportunity for us to overcome a lot of things that have hit us over the years. In this process, we created 3 themes, and you can see these across the top: the SMART option, keeping it simple, and us being the expert. We're going to start with the SMART option. That is really the key point that we want to convey to the consumer, that it is the SMART option for them to purchase an owner's policy of title insurance.
Okay, so now we're going to get in the minds of the home buyers. Let's walk around in their shoes for a bit. So picture yourself not as whoever you are, you a title nerd or an escrow diva or whatever you are. We do this stuff every day. It makes sense to us, right? We can do closings in our sleep, but not so much for the home buyers. So they know they're excited about buying a home, but they're also really confused and overwhelmed, right? So picture you're that person. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of decisions to make. And there's so many people involved, right? You've got a realtor, and there's lenders, and there's appraisers, and you've got a title company. You're not sure who does what. You know you're going to somehow get to the closing table. You're going to cross that finish line, but they don't know how they're going to get there. And they're not really sure who's looking out for their best interests. They may be feeling kind of alone. So that's exactly where we come in As Alta members, we are experts on the home buying process. We're here to help the home buyer, and if we communicate with them early in the process, then we can establish ourselves as trusted experts, and we can guide them to the closing table, and importantly, we help them feel protected. Okay, so then we've got, how do we do this? How do we talk to people? What do we say? So we've identified 3 main themes and messages that we're going to use when we're out there, you know, in our offices, whether you're at a cocktail party, whether you're at the closing table, that we're all going to use and be on the same page when we're educating consumers. So we've got peace of mind, and we kind of feel this may be one of our stronger themes, reduce your risk. And you notice we're saying your risk. We're talking, again, directly to the consumer with that word. And then we talk about the smart option or the smart choice. So, you know, kind of taking head on, you know, you may say title insurance is optional, not so much. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the first message, which is peace of mind. And the truth, as we know it, is buying a home is a big deal. It's a huge investment. People want to know everything that can possibly be done is being done to make sure everything's going to be okay. And in short, they just want to feel confident at the closing table. So people want peace of mind. The good news is that we can give it to them in the form of owner's title insurance. And what we're going to do is talk to them simply and directly about the fact that title insurance is how you protect your property rights as long as you or your heirs own your home. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Wayne, are you going to talk about the other couple of themes, I believe?
I think I'm going to jump in and talk on that.
Go Tim.
You know, I think this sums it up. The process of buying a home is overwhelming. Many of these individuals have never done it before or have only done it a couple of times in their life. And we're here to let them know that the title insurance policy is going to reduce their risk. It's going to be there to protect them throughout the years. It has value. It has the strength of the national underwriters that stand behind the policy, and it's peace of mind. We put a lot of emphasis on the fact that it protects the rights of the consumer as it comes to the ownership rights of the property. It's a one-time fee, it's low cost, and it's there for as long as they own the property. The key points that we can present to the consumer when they're evaluating the purchase of an owner's policy. Theme number 3 is the truth, and that is buying a home and empowering because it's all about their choice. And the consumer does have choices, and we want them to feel good about those choices. We want them to feel empowered, and through this program, we have the ability to make them feel empowered in their decisions. The good news that we have to deliver them, the fact that we offer this policy of title insurance to them. It's a smart, easy decision. It's one that they can make with the input from other parties that are involved in the transaction, again, being their real estate agent and their loan officers. And again, that process becomes important to us to help educate them so that they can make the consumer feel good about purchasing the policy. Okay, we now move into the new screen that talks to those parties, our partners in the transactions, the realtors, builders, real estate attorneys, lenders. We've developed a messaging program for those audiences as well. We're right now looking at the messaging chart for that. You'll notice that they closely align with those that were designed for the other parties in the transaction. And this is because we want all audiences to be on the same page. We want the message to be consistent as it's conveyed by a title agent or by another individual that is speaking about the product on our behalf and doing so in an educated fashion. We're now moving into the Homebuyer Guide. This is a new product that we have available, and it is, you can see www.alta.org/homebuyer. The guide's going to give our members everything that they're going to need to educate the home buyer, the realtor, the builder, and the lender on the value of title insurance. This program is going to include templates for presentation, can be used with letterhead and cover pages, social medias, rack cards for home buyers and realtors, one-pagers, and many, many more items. We want to let you know that Alta will also be running print ads in several trade publications to help increase the awareness of owner's title insurance for home buyers as well as our B2B audiences. This will help to make the conversation easier for the membership of our association during the closing process. The Home Buyer's Guide has more than 60 useful tools, and it includes items such as the blogs, marketing, one-pagers, rack cards, PowerPoint presentations. We're going to walk through the various items, again, that are available, and we want to let you know that Alta will be running print ads for trade publications that will help to promote our product within the B2B industry and realms.
And I just want to add one thing here. It may seem a little overwhelming that we've got 60 different tools. There's so many different things here, and you can use many of them in different ways. So this gives you the option in your branch or your agency to kind of sort through all the materials, figure out what works for you. And we're going to talk about some of those and offer ideas. But and a lot of them you can do at basically no cost. There's a lot of social media things you can do. So there's just a lot of opportunity for recognizing that one size does not fit all. We've created lots of different, options, flavors, colors for whatever you like to do. And Tim's going to talk about this one, I think, but I just have to add, this is one of my favorite graphics that we came up with. And Wayne, we've got a rich media version of this, right, where you actually see the threats coming in and like bouncing off the force field that is title insurance and kind of crashing on the ground. And I wish we could show that one here because it's really cool.
Right, and this I think as we show this ad, I think this is one that resonates with most people, both in the industry and consumers. It's very effective in showing, that the owner's policy really does deflect a lot of these concerns. And this is one of our print ads that we have available, but I'm going to toss it over to Nancy and Tim in a second to talk about some more practical uses other than just thinking about this in terms of a standard print ad. But like Nancy said, we also have it will be available in a rich media ad format, and that is marketing speak for the animated ads that you see on websites. So any website that has a little bit of movement or animation, you're going to be able to throw this advertisement up there to promote an owner's policy. And it is the animated version is really great. It actually shows the words flying into the force field there and bouncing off and hitting the ground with a great message of making sure that you protect your property rights and purchase an owner's policy at the end. The great thing about the ads is that you can add your own company logo. You can link them back to your own website, or you can link them to Home Closing 101, which I know Nancy's going to talk about later. But maybe Nancy, you had an idea about taking certain parts of even the print ads and using them in your own market. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, as we go through these, maybe some of those will be more apparent. But a lot of the print ads have, 7 reasons, for example, why you should get owner's title insurance. Well, I don't really envision myself running print ads, going out and making a big media buy in print. But, I could take those 7 ideas, and that can be 7 Facebook posts, or somebody could use those as 7 separate tweets. You could add 1 each week into your signature line. Reason number 1 why you need owner's title insurance. So, I think the idea is we're giving you some resources, we're giving you some materials, but we really want you to feel the freedom and the latitude to be somewhat creative. Also doesn't, I'm speaking maybe out of school here, Wayne. What I'm going to say is say you grab one of those ideas, throw it in your signature line as reason number 1, or put it up with your Facebook post. Now, Alta is not necessarily looking, you don't have to credit that to Alta. You don't have to throw the Alta logo on everything you do. These are there for you to use in the best way that it's going to work for you with your customers in your market.
Right. I can't say that enough, Nancy. You're exactly right, that this isn't meant to glue the Alta logo onto everything that you guys are doing in your own market. It's really meant to be an on-ramp for you to be able to do some of this, whether you're just starting out in terms of reaching out directly to consumers and educating them, or if you've already got stuff in the works, maybe this can bolster your efforts. But this second ad here is we call it the blueprint ad. You can probably tell why. And this one is also really effective for most of our members that see this and see that your life will change over time, your property protection never will. And this really plays to the fact that for a one-time fee, your owner's policy will protect you for as long as you or your heirs own the property. And again, this is just, it's an effective, different way of putting this information out there. And I think, kind of like what Nancy was saying before, this is another one that can be sort of chopped up and used differently depending on what you want to do in emails or e-marketing or even social media. I don't know, Tim or Nancy, if you have anything else to add to this one.
Well, I have to say that just working through the process with 360 and Alta staff, we had a committee that was made up of agents, underwriters, and we all had definitely strong opinions on a lot of these things, and some of these really touched us. And I think as we look back on the blueprint, that's a perfect example because it goes through the life cycle of home ownership. And I think it will play well with the public because a lot of folks, that when you convey to them as they're going through the different stages of home purchase or family life, they're going to be able to look at this and say, this is where I am, and yeah, this is a value that I need to protect for this portion of my life, whether it's my future or whether it's for the folks that are behind me. And so these are going to play extremely well, I think, with the consumer when we release them.
I agree. So this next document that you all see on your screen now is one of our marketing one-pagers. These are, again, in marketing speak, they often call it collateral, but really it's just designed to be something very quick and easy that you can print and take to industry meetings, that you can use in trainings with your staff or with real estate partners on the benefits of an owner's policy, or like Nancy had said before, this has got just a ton of great information that you can chop up and use in a number of different ways. But the important thing to know is that there is a lot of language on the page and a lot of explanation, but we have really tested this language to think through what are the themes that are most important to home buyers and what really resonates with them and is going to move the needle on how they feel about an owner's policy. I'm not suggesting that it will necessarily increase market share or anything like that, but I think that it will certainly go a long way into the long-term satisfaction and overall view of the industry to continue to put these good thoughts into our customers' heads. And you can see here just a few of the themes again that Nancy and Tim were talking about from before, between protecting your largest investment, reducing your risk, and giving you peace of mind. You'll see that those go throughout a lot of these materials, and I think that I hope that they will be very useful to our members. Nancy and Tim?
Yeah, one of the ways I intend on using this particular piece, I live in a state that we have state-mandated disclosure to the consumer of owner's policy of title insurance. We're required at the time that we receive an order to send out to the consumer a form that makes them aware of their right to purchase an owner's policy. It gives a little bit of information about the policy, but we've always looked for something that was very concise to include with that. And this piece is just going to be fantastic because we send that out to the consumer. It's going to help them to be much more educated in making that initial decision to purchase an owner's policy or not.
And now I think Nancy is going to talk about the Homebuyer Checklist presentation that we have available.
You bet. Thanks, Wayne. And this one, I believe, is available as both a rack card and a PowerPoint. Is that correct?
You are correct.
Okay. So we talked a little bit before about consumers being kind of overwhelmed and not understanding the process. And how do I get from how do I get from point A to point B? How do I get from contract to the closing table? So we've distilled the home buying process down to 10 key steps. And of course, the idea would be to get this to consumers early in the process so they know what to expect, and again, that they're feeling confident and not overwhelmed by the process. But what's interesting about this, if you look at it, where do we come in? It's number 5. It's halfway through this checklist before we're in the picture. So this piece would be, in my mind, it would be designed that you're going to work with your realtor partners or lender partners, and if somebody's meeting with a lender for a pre-qual, is this something we can get the lender to distribute to them? If you're doing new homebuyer classes in your market, this would be a great PowerPoint, or maybe that's an idea for you to do some co-marketing with some lenders in your market. Let's get together and do a new homebuyer class, and you can give this PowerPoint. Again, I think you can be creative with this, put in your email marketing. You could do a blog post around this. And of course, as we keep saying, you can brand it. Wayne, can you talk about how that works? How would somebody put their own branding on this? What physically, say I want to use this and I want rack cards. I'm going to go to the website. Sure. I download a file. Can you kind of walk us through that so the members understand what they're going to do?
Yeah, no problem. So the website will be available very soon that will have all of these materials on there, and you'll be able to sort of go through and see different buckets of tools that are available. So digital marketing resources, print marketing resources, or presentation resources like this one here. And it this one, you'll be able to go in, and whether they are PDF or the actual raw files of Word documents and PowerPoints and things like that, you'll be able to go in and easily remove the Alta logo and website and insert your own image without, hopefully, any problem. And for those that aren't super familiar with that or aren't as tech savvy as others, we're going to have tutorials on there that really goes through and shows both in a text format and a video format, quite literally how to go through the PowerPoint system or through a PDF, and which buttons to click very explicitly to remove and add these documents. And I hope that that's going to be pretty seamless for members, but obviously also your Alta staff will always be on hand to help with some of this as needed as well. And I know a couple people asked, and I think Jeremy answered it for us, but if people need permission before using these resources rather. And this is everything that's included in our homebuyer guide is a new Alta member benefit. So if you are a full dues-paying Alta member, you are going to receive every single one of these documents when you log into our website. All of it will be hyperlinked and downloadable, and you'll be able to start using it immediately, however you like. For folks that are policy forms license holders, there may be some of you on the call. If any of you are interested in talking about membership options to be able to access some of this, you can always email membership@alta.org to see what's possible for you. Does that help, Nancy?
I think so, yeah. I think that would, as an agent in the field myself, that would be a question I would have, which is, this is great, how do I access it, how do I use it? And so then I would, if I say I wanted to print this stuff, I would just brand it, and I'm going to email it to Staples or whomever I'm going to use in my market to print this stuff, correct?
And real quick, this is Jeremy. And this homebuyer checklist, we had a lot of debate back and forth in the work group as far as the terminology and how many items to put in the list. Someone just posed the question on number 6, get title insurance, and where that kind of and Nancy, I know.
Boy, did we talk about that.
Oh boy, did we. But we got to keep in mind that the new loan estimate and closing disclosure, and again, this isn't going to be as impactful in certain markets, but it's going to call owner's title insurance optional. So it's going to be really important to get in front of the consumer early in the process and remind them it's really important for you to get this owner's policy. If you're doing it at the closing table, it may be too late. Any other input, Nancy, on kind of?
Yeah, we tended to get in the weeds pretty far on this because, we're all title people, right? And it's easy to lose sight of the fact of who your audience is, which is a home buyer who may not really understand the process and what we do. really in my mind, yeah, that number 6 is, okay, you're getting your title commitment, you're reviewing that, before the closing, you're making an informed decision, it's helping you feel confident about your purchase. But this was more soundbitey. It was not paragraphs. And so, yeah, the idea here was to make sure that, you're not waiting till the closing table, that if you're in a state where buyer pays, it's not a seller pays state, so it's not automatically being provided, that decision needs to be made. And again, our opportunity to educate the consumer pretty early in the process. I agree from a member standpoint, it may feel a little bit awkward. I'm not sure it would play that way with the home buyer, which is who the audience is for this.
And one of the things that we really looked long and hard at as we were designing these is the fact that we wanted a form that could be used throughout the entire country. Every market is different. The terminology that is used is different, and we tried to design something that would have the longest possible shelf life so that it could be utilized for a long period of time and that we're not constantly updating and changing, not only from Alta's perspective, but from the agent's perspective. We want to have a kit that's available and that's not going to be subject to a lot of change as we go forward. And we wanted to make it the best possible and try to encompass the marketplace of all of our membership. Now it's time for a recap. You can see we have numerous different tools that are going to be available in the kit. The marketing collaterals, material for marketing to lenders and realtors, for Alta presentations, social media, the rack cards that we've talked about, blog posts, letterhead, the documents that are already pre-written that we'll be able to use for the home buyer, presentation templates, and there's many, many more things. We truly encourage you to remember this website, www.alta.org/homebuyer, and that's where the information will be available to you. And furthermore, there will be tools there to help you know how you can use this in your operation.
Okay, and in addition to the Homebuyer Guide, we've redesigned and rebooted Home Closing 101. If you guys haven't checked out this website, the redesigned site, I encourage you to do it as soon as you get off the call. It's clean, it's friendly, it's fresh. If you remember the old site, it was kind of jumbled, a lot going on, hard to find information, so we've taken care of that. It's very stripped down. And I love when you pull it up the site, and this is a static picture, but when you pull up the site, there's some different photos that are scrolling behind this. But I love the Find, Buy, Protect. Boy, I mean, that's just so direct, and we're there, right? We're Protect. That's us. That's where we come into the process. So, it's simple. You find a home, you buy the home, you protect the home. And sometimes it rains. And if somebody knows what quote that is, the first person who sends me an email, I will send you a Jackson Hole gift. But the other thing that's really cool about this site is that we've used a responsive, not we, do you like the imperial we, that they have used a responsive web design. And that means that viewing is optimized on all devices, which is really crucial because last year in 2014, mobile use surpassed desktop use for the first time. And so I have also pulled this up on my phone, and you bet, it works. It looks great on a cell phone. So what features do we have on this site? Of course, we're talking about the closing process. And there's some broad discussion there, kind of almost along the lines of the checklist, kind of what are the steps. But there's also some specific information for the consumer. Hey, remember to bring your government-issued ID to closing. So it's got some really good, helpful, beneficial information there. We also have a search tool so people can find an Alta member. And then we've got resources. So there's a real estate glossary, and then we've got links to industry partners, for example, such as our buddies at the CFPB. Okay, how do we use this? Well, it's a great resource to educate consumers about the closing process and the benefits of title insurance, but how are you going to do that? I think one of the easiest ways, and I think we should all be doing this as a minimum, is it really needs to be linked from all of our websites. You can direct consumers to your website. If they have a question, say, hey, I've got a great link on my website, go there. It answers some more questions about the closing process. What else can we do? If you send out a homebuyer letter early in the process, you can include a link there, right? So you're talking to the homebuyer up front, here's what to expect, here's the benefits we provide you. Any more questions, call me or check out this link, go to this website. You can also maybe link this in your signature line. You could put a Facebook post. I think there's a bunch of ways that we can, get the information out to the consumer that we have this new site available to them. Any other thoughts on that, guys?
I think you hit the
Covered it quite well.
And so finally, we have a lot of things at our annual convention for ALTA this year that are going to help roll out the Homebuyer Outreach Program to our members. So for those of you that are going to be present in Boston, you can look forward to a number of items all around the convention that are going to help you get used to and understand our new Homebuyer Guide and the resources that are available to you. So I encourage you to check those out. And then you can also attend up to 3 different professional development sessions that we will have available through our own Homebuyer Outreach Program track, which we're very excited about. A number of our work group committee members will be serving as panelists during those PD sessions. And each of those sections is a little bit different. We're really going to talk through the resources that are available and the number of ways that you can use these in your own market with a number of different industry experts. But the first session is titled Little Known Ways to Market Your Company to Home Buyers. Our own Nancy on this webinar today will be participating in that session. And in that one, we're really going to go through some scenarios of times in the real estate transaction when either consumers or our real estate partners are confused or don't really understand an owner's policy, and the different ways that you can go at those scenarios with solutions from the Homebuyer Guide. The second session is how any company can become a marketing powerhouse, and Nancy will also be on that panel, and that panel is really going to go through each individual section of the Homebuyer Guide and talk about the specific tools that are available in those and the different ways that our members can use them in their own company with having all of those tools available there in the room. They'll be able to touch, feel, and see the different wrap cards and rich media ads and things like that. And finally, the last session is called A Homebuyer, a Realtor, and a Lender Walk into a Bar. And this one features our own Tim Evans on this webinar. And this one's going to be a hands-on session that goes through a variety of skits with an actor as our title professional interacting with home buyers, realtors, and lenders, and going through the different ways that we should be communicating with those folks, the questions that we get asked most often, and what's the most effective way to talking to each of these audiences. So I think each of these 3 professional development sessions are going to be really great and hopefully super useful to our attendees. And if you have any interest in attending the convention or want more information, the website is there on the screen for you, and it's at meetings.alta.org. And I don't know, Nancy or Tim, if you have anything else you want to add to that?
No, we're looking forward to Boston and hope to see as many of you there as possible.
I just like to thank everyone for taking the time to listen to today's webinar and look forward to seeing as many of you in Boston. We'll be there.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Great information on the Homebuyer Outreach Program and all the material that's included in the Homebuyer Guide. Had some questions about when the website's going live. We are in the process of uploading all the material now. You can actually go to the site right now. You just won't be able to download everything or anything yet. By Monday, fingers crossed, everything should be ready to go, and you'll be able to use things starting then. We are going to hold a little time for some questions. When we were talking about the checklist, actually, I had a question come in in states where the seller pays for the owner's policy. What's the value in explaining to the buyer the benefits of an owner's policy? In my mind, I'm actually kind of thinking, well, the buyer could eventually be the seller, so it's important for them to understand the benefit of providing the owner's policy to the purchaser. Nancy, I believe you're in a seller pay state.
I am. Yeah, we are in a seller pay state, and this is fortunately I feel for those of you who aren't. Yeah, I don't think that's going to diminish my outreach efforts, right? Because as much as anything, we still want the consumer to feel empowered. We want them to feel confident. We want them to understand what we're doing, what the benefits are, to ask us questions, to be engaged in the process. So I'm still gonna reach out. I mean, and to your point, they are at some point maybe going to be a seller also. But I think I look at it as a broader issue for me in terms of, I think the more I educate consumers, the more they know what to expect, they're going to relay that to the realtor, right? They're going to have a better experience. Hey, those guys at Jackson Hole Title were great. I felt really comfortable. They explained what was going on. I had a great closing. And that means more repeat business from that realtor. So that's, for me, as somebody in a seller pay state, I look at just making the process better. If the realtor gets good feedback, if it makes them feel good, if it makes them look good at closing, then I'm going to see more business from that realtor.
Right, exactly. Another question we had come in, and it kind of involves the realtors, and the realtors wanting to have control or ownership of the transaction, and not wanting the title agent to have communication with the home buyer. Any input or thought on how people on the call can convince the realtor on why it's important to be doing this outreach to the home buyer and providing information about the benefit of title insurance?
Well, I think, as I mentioned earlier, the entire dynamic is changing as a result of the CFPB. And our company, at least, is making an effort to speak to our real estate agents and let them know that we have much more responsibility that is placed upon us to communicate this information to the consumer. We don't want to step on their feet. We're not trying to take any power away from them, but we want to have a smooth transaction when we get to the closing table. We don't want any last-minute changes. We don't want anything that could happen to disrupt the closing date that is scheduled for the transaction, or worse yet, any type of redisclosure. The consumer needs to make decisions very early on in the process, and it's going to be important for them to be fully educated when they make that decision, and we're there as the professional in this industry to help them to make that decision.
Yeah, I'd like to build on what Tim said. TRID creates the perfect opportunity for us to change the dynamic. And standard operating procedure, the way you've known it for years, we all know that's kind of out the window. And your realtors, unless they've been, living under a rock counting their commission checks, they know that's coming too. So they know things are changing. It's a perfect time to change some of your processes and your procedures. And they know TRID's coming, but they're scared. At least the ones I talk to, what's their biggest fear? Their biggest fear is delays. They're worried the closings aren't going to happen on time and there's going to be a delay. And I think that if we talk to the realtors, and again, it depends on your relationship in your market with your realtors. I'm not talking about asking permission necessarily. I think, at least me, I'm telling my realtors, hey, I'm going to be talking to your people sooner, and here's why, right? I'm going to help make sure they understand the process, make sure they understand that they have to be hyper responsive to lender requests. Don't have last minute changes. If you want this thing to close on time, we've got to start communicating with them early in the process. And then, of course, for those of you in buyer pay states, at that time, then you're also going to be talking to the consumer about the benefit of title insurance. But I think when I would talk to the realtors, I wouldn't say I'm talking to them early about title insurance. I'm going to be talking to them early to make sure they understand the process and understand what the changes are and what they need to do and what marks they need to hit to get to the closing table on time.
Right, great advice. And real quick before we run out of time and forget, Jim Blair did catch the reference, the Bull Durham reference, Nancy.
Somebody send me Jim's address.
Send us your address, Jim. Nancy has something great for you from Jackson Hole Title. Couple more questions. One more question, and actually one clarification. Someone asked if there are different levels of membership for ALTA. There aren't different levels of membership. Either you're a member or you're not. There are policy forms license holders. Now, if you're a policy license holder, that is not an ALTA membership, and that will not get you access to everything in the Homebuyer Guide. The policy forms license allows you to access the policy forms. You'll want to become a member to get access to the Homebuyer Guide. Nancy and Tim, maybe to wrap up, I believe you guys touched on it earlier, but just maybe some real life recommendations that you can provide on how people on the call can use this material that's not going to break the bank, and it's not going to be overwhelming and time consuming, because at the end of the day, we do have deals to close.
The first thing I'm going to do is educate my staff, because we've got a lot of great materials designed to educate staff and Alta members. So how about a lunch and learn with your staff, walk through, we can talk about some of the materials available and the language to use, some of the messaging. We all want to be on the same page, right? So, you know, whether it's your customer service person at the front desk, whether it's your escrow officer, whether it's your title officer, you know, out at a, you know, kid's birthday party, somebody says, what do you do? You want to make sure everybody's on the same page, has the same answer. So I'm going to start with a lunch and learn with my staff. And there's a great piece we didn't even talk about today that's called the manifesto, that's directed at Alta members. And it talks about, it's an inward internal piece, not for consumers, it's for us. And it talks about what we are and what we do. Because talking to ourselves, we're allowed to talk about what we do, right? And you know, that goes up in the break room immediately. Rack cards are cheap and easy in your conference room at your front desk. And again, there's so many things that are going to be free. There's so much of this stuff in terms of blog posts that are written. They've got sample tweets, sample Facebook posts. In addition to the Facebook posts you can create by just pulling the information out of, you know, some of the checklist information. And a home buyer letter, that's really easy, right? So the minute you get the order, you shoot a home buyer letter. You know, I do it via email, but you send that to the parties, introduce yourself, and talk about what you're doing for them in the process and how they're benefited. These are all super cheap and easy things to do and not really time consuming.
I think we can't miss social media. There's a lot of opportunities here that we can utilize these in a social fashion, whether it's sending out blogs and tweets, Facebook. I love the ideas of adding the 7 steps to our email, our signatures on our emails once a week, and changing that and rotating it. Again, I think, Nancy, going back to educating the staff is really the key. We have so many opportunities to talk to folks about our industry and our product. Our sales reps are out, and there's pieces that they will be able to leave with the realtors, a new topic to talk about as they're talking to the realtors, and truly presenting a unified value of an owner's policy of title insurance. They get tired of hearing us talk about it, but again, we can convey the message that we are charged with the education role, and that there's a value to the consumer. It's recognized universally, and as an industry, we're now carrying forth a unified message.
Yep. Great advice. No, sorry, Nancy.
And if I can add that, I'm sorry. I was just going to say the takeaways for me of coming through all the meetings that we had developing these materials were, you know, we're going to educate as opposed to market to the consumer, talk about benefits to them, not what we do, and lastly, keep it simple, really simple. What do? We protect your property rights.
Yep, great advice. We always have to remember the benefit to the person that's purchasing the policy, the consumer. And Wayne actually has a little surprise for everyone who's attending the annual convention on Saturday. Everyone at the final general session is going to get a nifty little gift, right, Wayne?
That's right. We have T-shirts made up with our Alta manifesto that Nancy was talking about, and maybe when if Jeremy sends any recap email, we might include that ad in that email. But it's a really great ad that really promotes industry unity and the benefits of being an Alta member, and everyone that attends that general session will receive one of those shirts for free.
Right. It's going to be fantastic. I think we're going to wrap up for today. We're at the top of the hour. If you missed parts of today's webinar, I think others in your office would benefit from listening. Recording of the presentation will be available for replay. Once we have the recording edited and uploaded, a link will be provided so that you can listen at your convenience. Again, that's at alta.org/title topics. Looking ahead, our next webinar will be on October 28th. A little tongue-tied. We will be discussing data security and strategies to protect non-public personal information. And then in November, we will dig into fourth-party vendor liability. And in December, to wrap up the year, we will focus on how how to prepare for market conduct exams. So we've got some great presentations lined up, so keep an eye out for registration information on those webinars. And with that, that will bring us to the conclusion of today's presentation. Thank you again to the speakers for joining us today. I hope we can see many of you in Boston as we further discussion on the Homebuyer Outreach Program. And with that, I hope all the listeners found today's presentation useful. Take care, everyone.